Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of The League of Biblical Enthusiasts. So we begin again, even more information on English translations. We've moved to the modern era. We've covered several episodes in the King James Version, and now we are looking at the New International Version. By the way, if you enjoy these episodes, please click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner. Like, comment, share, because our aim is to educate. I'm trying my best to bring the fruits of sound biblical scholarship where people who don't have the opportunity to attend seminary and study Hebrew and Greek and these kind of things are able to take advantage of advances in the field. So let's talk about the New International Version. I happen to have my mother's copy. She passed on, God bless her soul, in 2018. I gave her this New International Version on the occasion of her birthday, Christmas 1979. And as you can see, there are just scribbles of passages in the text, in the covers, in the margin, from beginning to end. I'm sure my father also used it heavily. And the interesting thing is, she was a conservative Christian, but not afraid to pick up and read new modern translations of the Bible and actually enjoy it. So let's talk about the New International Version. The NIV, as it is commonly called, is an English translation of the Bible first published in 1978. So the copy I gave my mother was fresh off the press. First published by the International Bible Society, now it's known as Biblica. The NIV was published to meet the need for a modern translation done by biblical scholars using the earliest and highest quality manuscripts available. Equally important was the goal to express the text of the Bible in broadly understood modern English. The core translation group consisted of 15 biblical scholars using Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek text, whose goal was to produce a more modern English language text than the King James Version. The translation took 10 years and involved a team of over 100 scholars from the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. The range of those participating included many different denominations, including Anglicans, Assemblies of God, Baptist, Christian Reformed, Lutheran, and Presbyterian. All of the NIV translators were required to sign either the Evangelical Theological Society Statement of Faith or a similar evangelical confession. So the NIV is, in a real sense, a conservative reaction to what some thought is a more liberal-minded translation like the Revised Standard Version. Now, one man in particular, if we look at the origins of the New International Version, one man had a vision for a more modern, readable translation. His name was Howard Long, an engineer from Seattle, Washington. And he was known for his passion for sharing the gospel and his love for the King James Bible. And one day he tried sharing scripture with a non-Christian, only to find that the language of the King James Bible was quite a stumbling block to his friend. One man laughed and said it was the most awkward sounding English he'd ever heard. And in 1955, Howard Long embarked on a 10-year quest for a new Bible translation that would faithfully capture the Word of God in contemporary English. Eventually, his denomination, the Christian Reformed Church, and the National Association of Evangelicals embraced his vision for what would become the NIV. In 1965, a cross-denominational gathering of evangelical scholars met near Chicago and agreed to start work on the New International Version. Instead of just updating an existing translation like the King James Version, they chose to start from scratch, using the very best manuscripts available in the original Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic of the scriptures. 1 year later, their decision was endorsed by a gathering of 80 evangelical ministry leaders and scholars. And so was born the CBT, or Committee on Bible Translation, the self-governing body responsible for the New International Version. In 1968, Biblica, which was then the New York Bible Society, came on board as the NIV financial sponsor, mortgaging its office space in Manhattan and New Jersey so that Howard Long's dream of a trustworthy, accessible Bible translation would become a reality. Their initial investment was $850,000. 10 years later, in 1978, the full NIV Bible was published. The initial print run of over 1 million copies sold out before they were even done printing. Dozens of evangelical denominations, churches, and seminaries embraced the NIV as their official Bible translation for preaching, study, public reading, and personal use. The primary text used for the Old Testament was Kittel's Biblica Hebraica, which later became Biblica Hebraica Stuttgartensia, and for the New Testament, the latest critical edition of the Greek New Testament of the United Bible Societies, together with the latest edition of Nestle's Novum Testamentum Graece. To ensure maximum accuracy and readability, the NIV went through perhaps the most thorough and rigorous translation process in history. First, each book of the Bible was assigned to a translation team consisting of 2 lead translators, 2 translation consultants, and 1 English style consultant. Then another team of 5 Bible scholars reviewed their work, carefully comparing it to the original biblical text and assessing readability. From there, each book went to a general committee of 8 to 12 scholars, and as part of the final review, outside critics gave feedback. Samples were tested with pastors, students, and laymen, and perhaps no other Bible translation has gone through a more thorough process to ensure accuracy and readability. The translator's work did not end when the NIV was published in 1978. The original mandate, given in 1965, was to continue the work of Bible translation, ensuring that the NIV always reflects the very best of biblical scholarship and contemporary English. The Committee on Bible Translation still meets every year, reviewing their work in painstaking detail. So over time, translators have come and gone, and a new generation of translators continue the work. They include Dr. Douglas Moo, Chair of the Committee, Dr. Mark Strauss, Vice Chair, Reverend Dr. David Instone Brewer, Secretary, Dr. Simon Gathercole, Dr. Bill Mounts, Dr. Sandra Richter, Dr. Paul Swarup, Dr. Daniel B. Wallace, Dr. Bruce Waltke, and Dr. Michael J. Williams. Let's review just 6 of the translators and their qualifications for doing this work. First is Dr. Douglas Moo. He's a Reformed New Testament scholar who, after teaching for more than 20 years at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Illinois, served as Blanchard Professor of New Testament at the Wheaton College Graduate School from 2000 until his retirement in 2023. In addition to his work on the NIV, he's the author of several New Testament commentaries and co-wrote an Introduction to the New Testament with D.A. Carson, a standard in the field. Dr. Mark Strauss, Vice Chair. Dr. Strauss is University Professor of New Testament, Bethel Seminary, San Diego. His PhD was from the University of Aberdeen. Dr. Strauss has taught at Bethel Seminary since 1993. He is the author and co-author of 20 books, one of which is a textbook on the Gospels entitled Four Portraits, One Jesus. He's written commentaries on Luke and Mark, books on hermeneutics and Bible translation, and he joined the Committee on Bible Translation in 2005. Dr. David N. Stone Brewer, Secretary. He's the Senior Research Fellow in Rabbinics and New Testament at Tyndale House, Cambridge, and received his PhD from the University of Cambridge. Dr. Brewer is a Baptist minister and researcher at Tyndale House, Cambridge. His specialties include rabbinic literature and the Jewish background of the New Testament. In addition to his academic research, he's been featured in Christianity Today, Time, and the Wall Street Journal, and became a member of the CBT in 2005. Dr. Bill Mounts, who's president of biblicaltraining.org and founder of technia.org. He received his PhD at the University of Aberdeen. He is a New Testament scholar and author of the best-selling Greek textbook, Basics of Biblical Greek. He previously served as preaching pastor in Spokane, Washington, and is director of the Greek program at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. Today he runs technia.com, a website helping people learn biblical Greek, and biblicaltraining.org, which provides discipleship resources for local churches. He was the New Testament chair of the English Standard Version, which we will cover in another episode, and joined the NIV translation team in 2009. Dr. Sandra Richter. She holds the Robert H. Gundry Chair of Biblical Studies at Westmont College and specializes in Hebrew language studies. She received her PhD from Harvard University. Dr. Richter has taught at the Asbury Theological Seminary, Wesley Biblical Seminary, and Wheaton College. She regularly publishes on the intersection between Syro-Palestinian archaeology and the biblical text. Due to her passion for the land of the Bible, she has spent many years directing Israel studies programs focused on historical geography and field archaeology, and she joined the CBT in 2019. Dr. Daniel B. Wallace, Senior Research Professor of New Testament Studies, Dallas Theological Seminary. He is the Executive Director for the Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts and holds a PhD awarded by Dallas Theological Seminary. Dr. Wallace has taught at Dallas Seminary since 1987. He's the author of Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics. He's also authored books on the syntax of the New Testament and articles on grammar, textual criticism, and exegesis. He was the senior New Testament editor of the Net Bible, and he served as the president of the Evangelical Theological Society in 2016. He joined the Committee on Bible Translation in 2019. The NIV is published by Zondervan in the United States and Harder and Stoughton in the UK. Stoughton, rather. The NIV was updated in 1984 and 2011. An easy reader version, called the New International Reader's Version, was published in 1996. It was written for a third grade reading level. A revised edition, today's New International Version, again used gender-neutral language and was released as a New Testament in March 2002, with the complete Bible published in February 2005. In 2011, an updated version of the NIV was released, and that discontinued both the 1984 version and the TNIV, or today's New English Version, New International Version. The 2011 update dropped some of the gender-neutral language of the TNIV and returned to using mankind and man rather than human beings and people. The New International Version is known as a balanced translation, striking the fine line between accuracy to the ancient text and readability. And it's Thomas Nelson who publishes the NIV editions with permission from Biblica. Over 50 years after the vision was first cast, and more than 450 million copies plus later, the NIV is the best-selling and most widely read Bible translation in contemporary English. The sales of the NIV surpassed the King James Version in 1986 and has done so every year since. and that is no small feat. King James Version sales numbers has it currently in 5th place at the end of 2022. Thomas Rayner, who is CEO of ChurchAnswers.com, compared the 2022 end-of-year USA Bible sales data with another summary he made in June 2021. The 2022 data is from the Evangelical Christian Publishers Association, their respected body. The comparative rankings are 18 months apart, and we will show the numbers to you. The numbers in parentheses are the rankings as of June 2021. First is the New International Version. Coming in second, what would you believe? The English Standard Version. Third, the New Living Translation. An interesting placement. Number 4, the Christian Standard Bible. And number 5, as we said, the King James Version. And for it to hold 5th place after some 400 and odd years of its first release is an amazing achievement, and to its simplicity and for its popularity throughout the years. So today, over 500 million copies of the NIV have been sold worldwide, and millions more have been distributed freely by Biblica. There are 2 decisive factors that have contributed to the remarkable success of the NIV. First, its readability. By virtue of its mediating translation philosophy, it's neither too formal nor too free. Second, its evangelical credentials commend it as a trusted translation to many conservative churches, colleges, other institutions, and conservative Christians in general. Mark Strauss, on the committee, says that by adopting a meaning for meaning rather than a word for word approach, which is a method known as dynamic or functional equivalence, the NIV was far more readable than its more literal counterparts like the Revised Standard Version and the New American Standard Bible. At the same time, it was significantly more formal than natural language versions like the Living Bible of 1971 and today's English version of 1966. Decades after the vision was first cast, the New International Version has become one of the most widely read Bible translations in contemporary English. That's because it delivers the very best combination of accuracy and readability. And before I forget, the New International Version restored the word virgin to Isaiah 7:14, which you might expect from its more conservative credentials. The next episode, we will look at the English Standard Version, known as the ESV, another very popular Bible published by Crossway, and has been adopted by many Christians, many churches, and many institutions, seemingly particularly the Presbyterian Church, PCA. That just may be my ad hoc observation, but we will discuss that and many more attributes of that version in our next episode. I hope you liked what you've been listening to. If you have, please like, subscribe, share, comment, and if you have any constructive feedback, I'm all ears. So in the comments, you will find more resources for research, things you can chase down and learn much, much more than we've covered in this introductory episode. So, thanks for listening to The League of Biblical Enthusiasts, and we'll see you next time.